was interesting. The Maple Leafs lose by a score of 2-1 to the Montreal Canadiens. I'm not doing too well. Ribb, how are you doing?
I think the most important thing is let's have a moment of silence for what we witnessed in the third period
No, we're not going to do that.
because that was something else. Those brought back horror flashbacks from the Leafs teams of old.
Yeah, it did. That third period was very tough to watch. I wanted to rip my eyeballs out at times, and yeah, it was tough. I want everyone in the comment section to leave your thoughts, your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section. We'll get to as many as we can. But there's something that I just want. We could talk about the third period a lot, but the thing that is bothering me the most is the fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs, they were out hit by a total of 46-16.
That's better than I originally thought because I was updating the stats throughout for the Instagram, and at the second intermission, I think it was something like 39-3 or something. So they stepped it up a little bit, but geez, that's for anyone that calls this team soft, there's the stat for you. Because there's no business you should be out hit by that much. I understand the Leafs aren't quite as physical team as Montreal is, but that's too wide a margin. That's not acceptable.
You know what? I've heard. Oh well, it's because the puck possession. It's not always all about hits. No, no, we got out hit by 30 hits, and how about we can't rely on Wayne Simmons to make hits every night, and we see that when he's out with injuries. This is the result we have: 16 hits. That's about our average hit total, sure, but we're allowing Montreal to hit us 46 times and having no response, no fire, no grit. That really agitates me. And if I'm Sheldon Keefe, tomorrow at practice, it's a morning skate, real nice and early, 7 a.m. We're going at suicides. We're taking hitting drills. I am teaching these guys how to hit.
You know what bothered me the most with that game, though, especially the third period? It wasn't the fact that the Leafs lost. It was the fact that it looked like at times in the third period that they just didn't care. Montreal was out there giving their all to get back in the game and scraping with everything they had, and the Leafs literally looked like they were a child out for shinny skate with their dad on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, comment right here. That's what happens when you try to sit on a 1-goal lead. We've seen this team in the past try to sit on a 3-goal lead, 2-goal lead, you name it. 1-goal lead here, even better. This was painful to watch, and that was good Canadians for sure. There's no discrediting that. The Canadians played great shutdown defensive hockey, but the Toronto Maple Leafs could not generate anything. Players were falling all over the place like there was divots that weren't there, and it was just really frustrating to watch. This team, they needed to come together. They needed to regroup, regather themselves, and they failed to do it.
I think a big thing too with a loss like this is to not overreact because obviously we're going to hear a lot of people calling for different trades, whether it be Sam Bennett, Tony DeAngelo. But if there is one thing that I think this did show that could point, I've been high on Sam Bennett going to Toronto right from the beginning. And I think some of the issues we saw in that third period, if you're looking at a third line center like Sam Bennett, I feel like he helps with some of that. I'm not saying he's the solution to all the issues, and I'm not saying it really depends on the price because Calgary has been asking for a high price tag, and that's why I think a lot of teams haven't pulled the trigger yet on that. But it's something you really have to reflect on because that is a player that would perfectly fit into more of a nitty gritty role. Maybe he lives up to his top 6 billing in the future because he is still young. Maybe he doesn't. But I know what he brings right now is a proven playoff performer with
Oh,
that intensity.
Stop with the playoff performer. Sure, he's got a good point total in the playoffs, but he didn't lead you guys too far in Calgary.
Yeah, but that's not on him. If you watch those games, you get it. He looks like he's the best player out there, and meanwhile, in the regular season, he looks like
it's because the players around him weren't performing in the playoffs. Monahan and him were tied with playoff points last year. Where's Goodrow in the playoffs? You can't just say that he's a playoff performer because the other players around him aren't performing.
That's Fine and all. If you're Calgary, that's a bigger issue. But I feel like for the Leafs, that's not the biggest issue. If he's their third line forward, do you really need him? So you need Austin Matthews, you need Mitch Marner, you need John Tavares to show up. Whatever Sam Bennett can do at that, that's just house money. But I feel like with a team that already has that much depth, it's just the final nail in the coffin that could really help.
Oh, it might help. We'll see. I don't really see the need for it right now. It could have been useful tonight, that's for sure. But a guy like Wayne Simmons would have been useful as well. A guy that brings a spark. But like I said earlier, we can't just rely on one person in Wayne Simmons to be that spark. We need Zach Bogosian. We need other players around this lineup to step up and make hits. We need them to be agitators and get under the skin of the opponents.
And you know what's the weirder thing too? It's not like Montreal is the biggest team out there either. Like they do have some undersized guys in Brendan Gallagher, Victor Mete. Those are just the ones coming to the top of my head, but they're not. It's not like they're just this team of behemoths that's going out there with these massive 6'3", 6'4" players hitting everything in sight. They just wanted it more. That's really what it came down to.
It looked like it. I'll give you that. I mean, it definitely looked like it. They looked like they wanted it more. They were hungry, and you'd expect that after losing to Toronto the other night, Wednesday. You'd expect them to come out firing on all cylinders, and they did. The Toronto Maple Leafs looked hot right out of the gate, but after that, they really slowed down, and Montreal was the better team.
Yeah, and I'm caught on what to say about this because I don't want to overreact too much to one bad period of hockey. And ultimately, the Leafs are still in a really good position on the season. And if you're Montreal and you're looking at this, I think this is as close to a must-win game as they're going to get to at this point in the season because you can't let the Leafs extend their lead on the division. And Montreal came out like a team that really needed the points, and they played like it. And I think this is the one time so far this season we haven't seen that killer instinct in the Leaf team that they truly need going forward. And I bet Dan's pretty happy in the comments about that.
Yeah, Dan's probably partying it up. Oh man, I was thinking in the first period, I was like, wow, this can be a great game, and then the Maple Leafs happened. Not the Maple Leafs that we're used to seeing this year, but the Maple Leafs of the past. And yes, I will agree with you that Leafs Nation shouldn't overreact. Montreal is a great team, and Toronto, you're not going to win every game. You can't expect us to win every game. Coming into this game an 11-2, 11-2-1 record, that's very impressive. 11-3-1 now. I would have liked to at least gotten that point and go to overtime, but it is what it is. Let's move past it, and I expect this team to blow out Ottawa on Monday night.
And if anything, maybe it's good that this wake up call happened at this point because maybe it will be that little extra motivator continuing on the season. Because you do start to worry about the complacency when you've been on a hot streak for so long. And if this isn't a wake up call for this Maple Leafs team, I'm not sure what will be.
Yeah, that's a good point. You need wake up calls. There's going to be ups and downs throughout the season. It's a long season, even though it's a short and condensed season. It's still a long 56 game season. We're about a quarter of the way through it. Amazingly, shockingly, it doesn't seem like it, but we are. It's going to be a roller coaster ride the rest of the way. There's a lot to be determined in the future, but we cannot see too many nights like this because it's frustrating to watch.
Okay, let's turn to a slightly more positive tone though. Let's go with one player each that we were impressed with tonight, that we at least think showed up and played well individually.
Brandon Gallagher.
I was going for a Leaf, but if we're gonna go,
Carey Price. Jake Muzzin. Jake Muzzin was all right. I think that Jake Muzzin, he led the team in hits. I believe he had 6 hits. He blocked a bunch of shots as well. I'd say Jake Muzzin and Mitch Marner was pretty decent. He looked pretty good out there. But I gotta say Brandon Gallagher and Carey Price as well.
yeah, I really liked what I saw from Zach Hyman. I think we saw throughout this game, especially in the first period, it was evident that that line with Matthews, Marner, and Hyman was dominating. And I still think they played pretty strong throughout the majority of the game. And you can get down on other players all you want, but Hyman did what was expected of him tonight. And you can see why he meshes so well with Marner and Matthews, and that line keeps working together. And they're a very strong first line for this team. And you talk about toughness and grit that needs to come from more places than Wayne Simmons. I think that's another player that exemplifies that on this team is Zach Hyman. And I think if more players played like Zach Hyman and Jake Muzzin night in, night out, you'd see some more consistency out of this team. But I think, as well as you touched on earlier, this is more of good, hungry Montreal in the third period than I think it is of the Leafs just falling apart and forgetting all semblance of hockey. And Brendan Gallagher played a hell of a game. Carey Price made sure that Leafs could barely get anything by him. And this is why this Montreal Canadiens team in a 7-game series could be very scary come playoff time.
I'll say this. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they were doing the right things. For the most part, it looked like they were doing the right things. Aside from the hits, it looked like they were doing the right things for the most part. But the Montreal Canadiens, they were doing everything right. Defensively, they were shut down. Carey Price, you couldn't beat him. He made a couple amazing saves, and you'd expect that from him. The Montreal Canadiens are not, they're no joke. They're an exceptional team, and these are the two best teams in the Canadian division. These teams are going to see each other 7 more times, and I expect Toronto to rebound in the next games.
And I think we also have to look at what was Montreal at coming in? Weren't they on a 3-game losing streak or something along those lines?
They lost the other night to Edmonton, Toronto, and they may have lost the game before. I'm not sure, but probably.
Yeah, so this might have been 4 in a row if they lost this game. So I think that's also important to note because obviously Claude Julien's just going to lay into them at the second intermission. And obviously it got through. They came out like a whole different team for that third period, and you got to give credit where credit's due. They stepped up like good teams have to when they're put up against the wall. And you don't like to see it as a Leafs fan, but I think the Leafs learned something from this game, and
Hey,
especially that third period.
you gotta call a spade, right? How about this? Nevin says Matthews played a complete game, and that's something that we didn't talk about. I think that Matthews' great games, they go under the radar often just because of it's expected. We expect him to be a superstar player, and he does this night in and night out. He was a playmaker out there. He was hustling all over the place. I liked what I saw from him.
I think the biggest thing too, touching on a complete game, was Matthews is doing a lot better in terms of takeaways this season, and just the different defensive metrics. And I think we are seeing a more complete, full game from Austin Matthews, and that's what this team needs. You need him out there. Obviously, you don't want him blocking every shot in sight because you don't want him to get hurt. He is your franchise player. But doing the small things like blocking shots, the takeaways, the winning faceoffs, just these things that are going to, if your superstar franchise player is doing them, then your guys like Ilya Mikheyev have no excuse not to. Adam Kerfoot. Those guys have to follow in the steps that are put for them by the top line players. So the more you can see of that from Austin Matthews on a consistent basis, I think the more it helps the team.
I agree. I think that Austin Matthews has the potential to become, because he's not there yet, but he can become the best two-way center in the NHL in the next couple of years. He's got to continue developing his defensive game. He's improved it. But right now, the best two-way center is Patrice Bergeron, and it's not even close. Austin Matthews has a better scoring ability, but the defensive aspect isn't quite up to that level.
I'm not sure he's ever going to quite get to the Bergeron level. I think he can get close potentially, but I think that's a very tall task. He's looking at a general, he's going to go down as one of the best two-way forwards of all time. And I don't think there's many players that can even come close to laying that claim. And obviously, Bergeron's had the help of playing with, especially the last few years with Pastrnak and Marchand, and a really good, strong line in Boston. And Boston's been a hell of a team for a while now. So I think by the time you look at all that, I'm not sure Austin Matthews ever quite gets to the pinnacle of Patrice Bergeron, but if he can get close, I think that's all you can ask as a Leaf fan.
You may very well be right, but uh, that just goes to show how exceptional Austin Matthews is, and how much faith we have in his ability. He's exceptional, and he's only going to get better. Uh, Interesting comment from Cody Allen. The last goal was a high stick. Don't get me started.
The
It could have
refs
been, but
are going to referee, and not much we can do about it at home, unfortunately.
and honestly, you know what? Montreal deserved to win that game. Either way, Montreal deserved to win that game.
And at the end of the day, that's on the league. If they think it's a questionable call at the end that potentially leads to victory where it shouldn't have necessarily been, then that's on the league to review. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. This is another comment from Baseball 27. Mikheyev absolutely flies out there, but his hands don't keep up with his feet. I'll say this about Ilya Mikheyev. He had a great block shot out there tonight, and he scored the game-winning goal the other night against Montreal on Wednesday. It was 411 days. 411 days that he went without scoring a goal. He's been very snake bitten, and I think that the first goal that he got the other night, it's a big monkey off of his back. He's gonna contribute more to the score sheet in the near future.
I think that was a big thing for the game the other night, that Justin Hall, Travis Dermott, and Ilya Mikheyev all got monkeys off their backs. They all broke very long, over a year-long goal droughts for each of them. And you can't help but think everyone on the team is happy for them, because obviously it's like one big family. And when someone's been snake bitten for that long, obviously all your teammates want to see you score as well. So hopefully that's a sign of positive things to come, especially more so for Mikheyev, seeing as he's a forward and not a defenseman. So he's expected to score a little bit more often, and hopefully he can continue that going forward.
Yeah, I think that he will. The goals are going to come from him. He's a hard worker. It shows out there. He's very valuable in the penalty kill. He's a great skater. It's going to come to fruition for him. And just with time, the goals will come. Should we talk about the third period or positive? Let's continue with the positive, and then we'll get more into the negative. Not that there is that much positive, but I guess you can flip this and make it a negative stat too. You could say, why the hell is there more than there's 21 shots plus all the shots that they actually got on goal? But you know what? We blocked 21 shots. That's something you like to see. That's a great team thing.
I think the perfect example, and seeing as the Leafs just recently played them, every Leaf fan will be able to relate to this. You know what happens when you don't block 21 shots and you let 40 plus shots get through on your goalie? Look at the Vancouver Canucks. We don't want to be the Vancouver Canucks. We don't even want to be mentioned in the same sentence as the Vancouver Canucks. And obviously, your A game isn't going to be there every night, but I'm glad to see that in a night where there was some sloppy play, that at least some Toronto players stepped up and blocked some shots to help out the goaltender.
Yeah, it's a good thing that we stepped up, and this team, it's becoming more of a cohesive unit working together to block shots, and that's something that we haven't seen from Maple Leafs teams in years past. We've seen it in small sample sizes, but now we're starting to see it more and more frequently, and that's a key to success for any team. Blocking shots, it's obvious. It prevents shots from getting into your goalie.
Well, yes, and if we're looking down the road, and you don't want to go too far this early in the season, but if you end up playing a Montreal, a Boston, a Tampa Bay in the playoffs, you can't be giving up 40 plus shots a game. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have a chance to win that series at all. So that is probably the biggest improvement that we've seen, that this Leafs team is finally starting to play like a team that wants to win, like a team that truly understands what it takes to win. And honestly, it leads to some boring hockey, but that's a good thing. Look at the second period. Look how boring the second period was to watch. But look at what the score was at the beginning of the second period, and look at what the score was at the end of the second period. There's something to be said for that. And obviously, I'm not advocating sitting on a 1-goal lead and trying to milk it all the way through the game. But if you can start to do that for stretches where you have a lead and you can conservatively hold it, more often than not, that's positive.
You're right. You're right about that. More often than not, it is positive. My dog just came in here like a train, the Wayne train, and just wrecked everything, smashing stuff. But oh boy, how about this game tonight?
Well, I think we should rename your dog at this point, Brendan Gallagher. He's just running through the door and breaking down everything in the semblance of his way to get to the win.
Chewy, what are you doing? Wow. Um, so let's get to some comments, and we will come back to continuing on. We've got a lot to talk about here, and this is kind of off the track. He says we are surprised. He's surprised to see Nick Robertson and Rasmus Sandin sent down. I am not necessarily. The HL, Ribb, if you're not aware of this, the HL is back in Ontario. The Belleville Senators, Toronto Marlies have been cleared. They're good to go. So that's a great thing. It's a great thing to have our minors. We can see some players grow and develop instead of having players like Rasmus Sandin get 5 minutes of ice time through 14 damn games. That's great for his development, and I'm happy he's sent down to the Marlies because 5 minutes of ice time in 14 games ain't cutting it for me. Nick Robertson, he's injured. Coming back from an injury, that might be a rehab kind of thing, getting back there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stays there throughout the season.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because as we've touched on in many shows earlier, Sandin was obviously very politely frustrated throughout the season. He's a professional hockey player. He's not going to come out and completely speak his mind, but he basically said it in as nice a way that he could that it really sucks that he was barely seeing any ice time, and he doesn't like to see that himself. He thinks he has a lot more potential, a lot of room for growth. So I think at this point, if the Leafs aren't going to play him, it's better that he's sent down to the AHL where he can play top pairing minutes, top power play minutes, and be getting the 25 minutes a game. That's going to help his development and really be quarterbacking that team. And as
Yeah.
far as Nick Robertson, I mean, going in a completely different direction now. Just given fantasy hockey, I've been watching a bit of Oliver Ekman-Larsson coming back from an injury. And you can obviously tell that even elite players like that have played in the league for quite a while, it takes a bit to come back from an injury. And obviously, trying to do that at the NHL is one of the most difficult things you're going to have to do, especially as a young player. So I'm not too surprised to see Nick Robertson sent down because obviously playing at that slightly slower pace and being able to get his legs underneath him, I think that's going to be a big thing because the last thing you'd want to see is to him to either get rushed back or come back right from an injury and not have the confidence he needs to succeed.
I see what you did there with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson thing. All right, so everybody, I'll make this known to everybody. So on the Maple Leafs Media Fantasy League, the first seed in our respective divisions, Ribb in the Dubas division and myself in the Keefe division. I have a surplus of defense, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta offload some of this. I need another center, left winger. So I sent Oliver Ekman-Larsson to Ribb in exchange for Jamie Benn, two players who've, they've both got a downside but really high upside. So I want to know in the comments section, who do you think won this trade? Did I win with receiving Jamie Benn, or did he win in getting Oliver Ekman-Larsson from me? Just consider the fact it's a hits league and blocked shots league, and just I want to know. I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks.
At the end of the day, I think if anyone in our audience is in our fantasy league, you'll know that we've seen some pretty lopsided trade offers. And I think this is one of the few fair ones that we've seen come through. I obviously had a surplus of forwards, and Barco over here had a surplus of defensemen, and hopefully it works out well for both of us.
Yeah, hopefully it does. It was good doing business with you, but we'll continue with this game. Let's get back to the negative. We've been joking around too much, and how about this? The third period was a mess. How about the fact that we were outshot 12-6 in the third period? The third periods have been good for the Maple Leafs as of late. Vancouver scored 3 against them, and then we had a couple goals against Montreal the other night in the third. First period's been the one that's been bad historically throughout the season. We completely flipped that, and it's adding to the long list of inconsistencies. Outshot 12-6 in the third period. What do you think of that?
I think, given what we saw in the third period, if you had actually told me the Leafs had outshot them, I would have been shocked. I would have told you were a liar. and I wouldn't have think that was even remotely possible. So I think it's what we all expected. Anyone watching the game, you could obviously tell that even before looking at the stats. And I don't think there's too many positive things you can say about that period. They went in with a 1-0 lead. They came out losing 2-1. You would have at least liked to see it go to overtime to get the 1 point. They weren't able to accomplish that. And Montreal wanted it more. Simple as that. A good team stepped up and outplayed the Leafs for a period of hockey and stole a game. And I'm not saying they didn't deserve to win the game and they stole the game in that, but they came from behind, they played well, and they got themselves the important points. And yeah, I don't really know what else you say about that.
Well, I'm with you. The Montreal Canadiens are a good team, and they stole the game. They deserved the win in the end. Toronto Maple Leafs also appeared like they gave that away. They appeared like they just said, you know what? Here's 2 points, Montreal. Just take it right from us. We don't want it. We don't need it. We're at first place in the division. We're complacent right now. That's what it looked like to me. That's what it looked like to me. I might be overreacting. I'm a Leafs fan and I'm getting very frustrated right now. But we need to take into consideration that this team is still 11-3-1 and sitting at the top of the North Division. Sitting pretty right now. But we got 3 games against Ottawa, and I expect us to win all 3.
And I think obviously the Leafs are in a really good position right now. And I don't think there's any realm outside of like a huge turnaround in which we're playing a Vancouver and Ottawa in the playoffs. So these are the measuring stick games. These are what it comes down to. Playing teams like Montreal, Winnipeg, possibly Edmonton or Calgary. We'll see which one of them is able to sort out their own problems better to move into a playoff slot. But not every game is going to be like a Vancouver series where you're playing a struggling team. And I think it's really important that the Leafs maintain that 1 seed because I think that's going to be really valuable. Because I don't think you want to end up in a 2-3 matchup with Montreal in the first round. And if you could avoid that,
it'd be fun, but it might not be fun in the end.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like just given what we saw with the hits, if you come out of a Montreal series and you win, the team's going to be very beat up going into the next round.
Yeah, we're getting hit 46 times a game. My lord. And everyone's going to be injured by the time we come out of that series. ASC says Montreal's a good team. Didn't expect us to go 10-0 against them. They'll beat us again, and so will we. That's a great comment. That's a great moderator type of comment right there. ASC. I like it.
And honestly, like, all things aside, if the Leafs can take care of their business against the Ottawas and the Vancouvers of this world, and even just go 500 versus the rest of the teams, it still puts them in a really good position.
I don't want that. That's not good enough for me.
I'm not saying it's what we all want, but I'm saying the bigger picture here is play competitive games against the teams where it really matters. You're not going to win every one. You're not going to lose every one. But make sure you take care of your business on the bottom dwellers and make sure you show up when it matters most.
Yeah, I mean, it mattered a lot tonight. Every game matters in the NHL, and you're right. I mean, we just need to come out and play better. We're not going to win every game, but let's just rebound. It's about how we respond to adversity. Let's see how this team responds to adversity. We've responded to a lot with our injuries and stuff so far this season. So let's continue to do that.
I'm really curious too, just on a side note. Do you think this might have something to do with playing Vancouver 3 games previous and like not quite getting that same intensity level?
No, because we beat Montreal last game. I feel like this is just. I don't know what this was. I'm at a loss. I am not sure what this was here tonight. You're not going to win every game. Montreal was just the better team tonight. That's all I can That's my analysis. Montreal was the better team, and Toronto came out flat. They came out with flat tires, and it showed when they were falling on the ice like a million times tonight. They were falling all over the place. They were getting outbodied, outplayed, and there was no spark.
And I think AC just touched on it perfectly. These are the type of games that you can really use guys like Simmons. And that's the first thing I thought of when I was coming on here, is think back to game one against Montreal when Simmons got in that fight and changed the tide of the game. And I think if one team in this division that having Wayne Simmons makes the world of a difference, obviously it helps the Leafs and all variations of teams. But Montreal is probably the most important one to have Wayne Simmons there.
Yep. Maybe Calgary with Matthew Tkachuk and the flip to the face, but yeah, that's going to be important to have Simmons back for that. But yeah, I agree. You need to have Simmons and a spark. But like I said earlier in the show, you can't rely on Wayne Simmons to fight every single time you're down in a game. We need other players like Zach Bogosian or heck, I don't care who it is, Jake Muzzin. Someone else needs to step up and bring the fire and intensity when Wayne Simmons isn't there.
Yeah, I think everyone's right in the comments here. They weren't good enough. The Leafs' inconsistencies caught up with them. It's yeah, and Frank touched on that, rusty nails. They didn't get a penalty. They weren't.
Yes.
I'm not advocating to go out here and fill up the penalty box nonstop, but they were playing like they looked like they were scared to get a penalty to a certain extent. And that's not going to necessarily lead to a tough team to play against with lots of grit and all these intangibles that are winning teams have. For every Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov you have on a Stanley Cup winning Tampa Bay Lightning team, you've got the Cedric Paquettes of the world, the Zach Bogosians, the guys that aren't going to show up on the score sheet nonstop, but they serve their role too. And I think the biggest thing is outside of Wayne Simmons, figuring out who that is for the Maple Leafs on a consistent basis.
Well, we need more people to step up. That's very evident. We need more people to step up. We saw our bottom six guys step up and play a major role in our last win Wednesday. We saw Justin Hall, Travis Dermott, and Ilya Mikheyev be the goal scorers. They were the spark that team needed Wednesday night, and tonight nobody was able to provide a spark, whether it was a big hit, a fight, a goal, or just a dangle. Nothing was working for the Maple Leafs. We need a
And
spark.
I think another thing to touch on too, and I'm curious what your take is on this, and if anyone has an opinion in the comments, let us know. What do you think Joe Thornton, eventually returning, brings back? Do you think he could still slide into that first line and let Hyman move down the lineup a bit to solve some of those depth issues? Or do you think he fills more of a depth role and perhaps solves one of those issues himself?
See, that's tricky. And that's why I'm not getting paid Sheldon Keefe money to be the head coach of the Maple Leafs. But for me, you could do either. You could put him on that first line and then slide him down back to the third line in the middle of the game, like what they're doing at the beginning of the year. You could rotate him and Hyman between the first and third line. But I really like what I've seen from Zach Hyman on the first line with Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. Maybe he fills a role on the second line with William Nylander and John Tavares.
That would be an interesting fit, actually. The only thing I would slightly worry about if you were to put Thornton on the second line with Tavares and Nylander is I'm a bit worried that maybe the skating speed wouldn't quite be there.
Yeah, I guess.
But I feel like that's a problem for another day. Once he's cleared to come back, we know he's coming back. That's why. And I think at this point, Sheldon Keith's done a very good job managing the lines, and we all just have to trust in him that he'll make the right decisions.
Interesting comment. I didn't even see this. That second line needs to make up. It's so infuriating to see John Tavares turn over the puck in the neutral zone. John Tavares, he played a good game defensively and made a couple big defensive plays. I think that you can't really get on John Tavares. Third line center for Thornton. It's interesting. So how would that work? You'd have Thornton on the third line, but then Kerfoot's a center. You move him to the wing. I don't I don't know. I feel like having Thornton play on the wing, be more free and available is a better spot for him right now.
Yeah, I don't know. They can both play up the middle, and I guess that's a good luxury to have because I feel like both of them could slot to the wing and go. Both can play in center.
First and fourth line look good. Personally, I'd love to see him get a few shifts on the top line, but bottom six most of the game. I'm with that. I'm all for it. Thornton can really slot into the lineup anywhere. He's very expandable. He can fit into the lineup anywhere.
I think that's the beauty of having someone like Jumbo, and I think that's, if anything, what the Leafs are missing a bit right now. Because obviously Jumbo and Wayne Simmons both filled very similar roles. They can both slot in and out of the lineup. They've both made deep playoff runs with various teams they've been on. And they both bring a toughness and a grit and a veteran experience that when tides start to turn, when you start to see the momentum shift, and the period looks like it might be getting away, those are the guys you need. Those are the offseason additions that Dubas was able to bring in. And that made a difference. And now that you have both of them out of the lineup, you need to find someone within this current roster that can start to fill those gaps.
Well, yeah, from what I've been hearing, Thornton, he may return for the Ottawa series, which would be massive. It would be awesome to get Thornton back. That's going to be really a big factor in our success in the future, I think. We've had so many pieces step up in their absence, the absence of Nick Robertson, Joe Thornton, and Wayne Simmons. But really having any of them come back and integrating them back into the lineup, it's only going to help this team.
And the question I'll pose, because I see a few people asking it, do you think the Leafs make a move this season, more than just like a little minor tweak, like a substantial move?
It's tough. With the cap space and the quarantine period, it's tough. Elliot Friedman's been saying it a lot, that we could do it. And if Elliot Friedman says it, then who am I to say otherwise? I mean, Elliot Friedman, yeah, if he's saying it, then yes, I see it. But I don't really see the glaring need for it at this point in time unless we have more injuries hit us.
Yeah, because I think that's the big thing here. Obviously, Elliot Friedman's been doing this for quite a while and he knows what he's talking about. Here on Maple Leafs Media, we do offer a different perspective as fans talking to other fans. And it's a little bit more raw in content, I would say, than your professional sports writers at the moment. I don't think there's a glaring need. I feel like that may just be, obviously Toronto's a big market. They need to talk about things, and that's going to be a major talking point that a lot of fans are interested in. But I don't necessarily think. I think the biggest thing is get healthy. Figure out your consistency and get healthy.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's really not that many pieces you can bring in. Like, there's not that many pieces that are so valuable that I'm like, yes, we need to bring this player in. He's gonna instantly make our team better. Sam Bennett thing, I get that. You know what? You can make the playoff performer argument. I disagree with it. That's fine. He's a gritty player. He'll make hits. He'll get in the dirty areas. That's fine. But does he make this team a much better team? I don't think he really pushes this team over the top, and I'm not making a move just to make a move.
The argument I make to Sam Bennett, and I know this is where we disagree, I'd move a Travis Dermott for him. I think he's going to offer more when the games get tougher than having a defenseman that's not necessarily going to play all the time, depending on how the lineup shakes up.
I think Travis Dermott, if he ends up re-signing with this team, he's got a bright. Either way, he's got a bright future in the NHL. He's still very young, and he's got a very cheap contract. Let's get to some comments. Let's see what everyone else says. Just remember, Gretzky was traded. Anything is possible. Not a glaring need right now, but definitely for the playoffs, as we can definitely get to the semis at least. Why did the Leafs send down Robertson? There's two possible reasons, in my opinion. Ribb, you can attest this in a second. I think it's either to give him some rehab or just to get him playing time.
Yeah, I think we touched on this earlier. I think the biggest thing is the rehab, probably more than anything. Obviously, the playing time's important, but I think Robertson potentially gets in this lineup quicker than Sandin does. But I think you're looking at a smaller player. Obviously, playing in the NHL at his size is no easy task. It is a physical game. The Leafs aren't exactly a physical team, as we saw tonight. And coming back from an injury on top of that, I feel like he just needs that little bit more AHL game time to really. Because the biggest thing with a young player coming into the league and making his first big impact is going to be confidence. And the last thing you want to do is take a promising prospect like Nick Robertson and rush him into a situation that may not be ideal and ruin his confidence for the next 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with that 100%. So everybody in the comments section, if you're watching this, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, if you're on YouTube, smash that like button and hit the notification bell. And if you're on Facebook, share this video, tell a friend to tell a friend. It really helps out the channel and the brand in a big way. Maple Leafs media is growing. We're going to get to some shot charts, and then we can take some more questions as we always do. If you got any trade offers, maybe we can take one of those. I don't know how tradey I'm feeling tonight, but let's do the shot charts and let's look at the Montreal Canadiens first. So you'd think they had more shots on goal, but no.
I think that touches on the blocks, 21 blocks you were mentioning earlier, too.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing that was bothering me throughout the live stream that I did this entire game, look at the cluster right in front of the net. There's a bunch of rebounds, and in front of the net, too many times I saw Freddie Anderson falling down and nobody being there to stand up for Frederik Anderson. We did not do a good enough job of clearing out front of our net.
Well, yeah, and I think the testament to that is look where the 2 goals came from. Basically the exact same spot right in front.
That's where the majority of the goals against Toronto Maple Leafs have come from this year. If I were to go back and look at a shot chart from every single game, there's probably at least one in every single game from that exact spot. And it's sickening to see that.
And I think that's also part of understanding. Obviously, that's one of the most common areas to score in hockey, and that's probably the most sacred area to protect as a team. So I don't think it's too uncommon to see like a goal a game. But if you're constantly seeing that night in and night out, and it's more than one goal, and it's becoming an ongoing trend, then that's the more concerning factor.
It has definitely become a trend. Let's look at the Maple Leafs. They scored right in front of the net too, but their shot chart.
Look at the difference, though. Like, sorry to cut you off there, but that's a massive difference. Look at the difference. Look at how many Montreal had in that little cluster right in front. Look at how many Toronto had. One, and they scored it.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. That's tough. The shots, nothing was getting through. There's a bunch of deflected shots. Nothing was working for the Maple Leafs offensively. Did Montreal play good against the Leafs? The Montreal Canadiens played one hell of a shutdown game tonight. Toronto Maple Leafs didn't look good, but you got to give credit where credit is due. You got to call a spade a spade. The Montreal Canadiens were the deserving team of a victory tonight.
And I think we touched on this earlier. This is more good Montreal than it is horrible Leafs. Obviously, we're not too happy with the Leafs, and that's why you're seeing some of the reactions you are, because we're Leaf fans. But at the end of the day, when you're looking back, it's more good Montreal than it is horrible Leafs.
Yeah, exactly. These are both good teams, both teams that we expect to see succeed and potentially make a run into the playoffs. But the Montreal Canadiens were the better team tonight, and that showed on the scoreboard. And it is what it is. We'll be seeing this team 7 more times this season. I expect both teams to take wins in those games.
Yeah, and I think touched on it earlier. I'll touch on it again. You best believe the Leafs are going to come out the next time they play Montreal with fire under their butt.
I hope so. I sure hope so. They better. They better. Because if they don't, that's when like you think that people are talking about trade talks now. It's another performance like this, or a few consecutive losses like this one. That's when people are really going to start to be talking about trades, and that's not me. I'm saying just the general public, the media, all in the comment sections of Maple Leafs posts. All you're going to see is trade this player, get this player. That's all it's going to be if we go on a losing streak and have multiple losses like this.
Well, I'm glad that Kyle Dubas in his time here has heard it all. He's taken all the criticism from signing the Big Four to the contracts that he did to being told that he was a terrible GM that had no business doing his job to then winning over some Leaf fans with his off-season acquisitions he was able to pull off. But there's still a lot of Leaf fans that are hard on him. And I'm glad, and there's a reason that he's paid the amount of money he is to make these difficult decisions. And obviously, it's easy for all of us in the comment section to be like, we should immediately change this right away. But there's a lot more factors at play, like the waiting period with the pandemic, integrating yourself with a new team. We've seen it with teams of the past that stock up at the trade deadlines for players that are looking at rentals to come and play. Sometimes they hit the ground running with their new team and immediately take off, be a point per game for the rest of the season, and really cement themselves in the playoff run. And sometimes they're barely noticeable at all. And I think that's a complete balancing act you have to decide. How much are you mortgaging your future for the current team? And will the player you're picking up be immediately able to step in and make a game-changing impact? And I
Definitely.
don't think with a Leafs team that's this young and has this much potential, unless a player is there that you're certain can step in and make an impact right away, and maybe if it's a more forechecking or a more physical player, you're not quite as concerned because those things are easier to translate. But you have to know for damn well sure that if you're trading someone, especially with high upside like Sandin, you're going to hear about it for years if it doesn't work out. And you could potentially be looked at like an Andrew Rakoff trade all over again, or a Phil Kessel trade all over again. And the Leafs can't afford another mistake like that. You've built such a solid team at this point with such a bright future. We don't need to make one quick trade that blows up in our face.
There's not a chance in hell I would even explore trading Rasmus Sandin. Not a chance in hell. There's no way I'm trading Rasmus Sandin. Unless you're offering me Sidney Crosby or something. I'm not trading Rasmus Sandin. I'm not trading him away. He's too valuable of a piece for our future. He's got such high potential. He can be a great defenseman in this league.
So
Uh,
if I pick up Rasmus Sandin in fantasy, does that hold true? I trade him to you for
this
Crosby?
isn't fantasy hockey. This is the NHL. Okay? But back to your point about Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas, I think he has done an exceptional job. You look, he's fulfilled his promises, right? First promise, I'm going to re-sign the core four, all of them. Everyone says, oh, that's impossible. How can you do that? He did it. Then people didn't like how he did it. Well, the Nylander contract looks pretty damn good right now, doesn't it? Next promise was, I want to make this team tougher to play against. It's tougher to play against. But the question that remains, is it tough enough? Maybe comment here from William. He says, I think we need a guy like Tyler Pearson from Vancouver. That's an interesting player that I would like I'd explore bringing him in, but I don't know what we'd need to give up to get a guy like that.
I don't know. I think that's the big thing. And Frank Rusty Nails also touched on it with Rickard Rakell. Those are two players that I think could potentially be good fits in the Leafs. And they're both on respective teams in Anaheim and Vancouver that I don't think are immediately trying to win. So they could be available. But when you're looking at a team that's rebuilding, they're going to want future assets, whether it be a high draft pick or a prospect, whether it be a mid prospect or a top end prospect. So I think the big thing with a young team like this is weighing out the future versus the current and how close the Leafs really are to overtaking that mountain. Because it's one thing to get out of the Canadian division, it's another thing to beat a Boston and a Tampa Bay. And that is the real measuring stick. If you think and you're confident that you can get out of the Canadian division, you have to start weighing what are the odds you get through two juggernauts and what's it going to take to do that.
We all know you're confident to get out of the Canadian division, but I'm hopeful for this team. I know it was an upsetting loss tonight, but that's all jokes aside. Let's not get too down on this team. It's this team's faced a lot of adversity throughout the season. They're going to continue. There's going to be games we lose. It's about how we respond and recover.
And frankly, if I had told you this many games in the season that this would be the record the Leafs would have, I think we'd all gladly and joyfully take this.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would be surprised.
So we're nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking, but bad period of hockey. Can't dwell on it too much. Move on. If we start to see it become a trend, then it's more concerning. But if they're able to learn from this and just pick on where they left off, that's what we want to see.
Okay, we've got a trade offer from Pringle McDingle, and
Is it a realistic one?
we've got. Okay, let's start off with Kerfoot for Sam Bennett. If you want my answer, you can check out my last video. The answer for me is no for that one. What do you think, Kerfoot for Sam Bennett?
I think Dermott for Sam Bennett's probably more realistic. I'm not sure Calgary would take just Kerfoot back. I know they're very high on a price tag, and I don't know, maybe they'll get desperate enough to take it. But I don't see Calgary accepting that. And I don't know. I feel like trading one third line forward for another, you're just swapping issues. You're swapping players and making players integrate into new systems they're not familiar with for what?
Exactly.
Like it would make more sense to trade a defenseman for Sam Bennett than it would to trade another forward for him.
Yeah. As for Ilya Mikheyev, Jared McCann, nah, I'm good.
I don't know what Jared McCann's stats are, but if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, he hasn't done much in the NHL. And I think
In his
McCann,
NHL career, I've got the stats right here. In 321 games played, he has 54 goals and 128 points. And this season, in 11 games, he has 2 goals and 3 assists.
I don't think McKay's the issue.
I don't either. I think that no.
I think you know what you're getting with Mikheyev. And can Jared McCann fill that same role? I don't know. I haven't watched him play enough to fully make a good, transparent decision on that. But my gut instinct is no. He probably doesn't quite fit that same mold.
Soup is an exceptional skater.
Yeah, everyone's getting on Soup just because he's only scored the one goal and he's been kind of snake bitten. But they're kind of overlooking all the positive things he does, even if he's not on the score sheet.
Penalty kill, block shots. We saw it tonight. He's always a standout guy.
And again, as I'll keep saying with this team, look at the record. Playoff aspirations are definitely something to be looking at, unless there's a colossal collapse. Players like Ilya Mikheyev can make one play, whether it be a penalty kill, a shorthanded goal, a big block. They're the type of players you can see make that one play where it's the highlight reel play of the playoffs, and you're like, I'm glad we have them. I'm not sure Jared McCann offers that same upside. And I feel like for a depth piece on a playoff team, you don't trade Ilya Mikheyev.
No, so many times we've seen in the playoffs, it's not necessarily like obviously you need to have star players, but it's also the players around them that make the big difference. I think everybody knows that it's the players around your superstars and how you fully construct the team that makes a difference. You can look at the Edmonton Oilers right now. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, or even the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin right now. Chris Letang as well. But before that, they were loaded. They had Peter Sikora. They had Brendan Sutter. Like, these are fourth
Phil
line guys.
Kessel.
Pascal Dupuis, Phil Kessel, Jerome McGinley at one point didn't win a cup there, but they've had so many pieces that's exactly what I'm talking about. You need to surround these core pieces with adequate pieces.
Yeah. Are you telling me there's a playoff team in this world that wouldn't want Ilya Mikheyev?
Exactly.
I don't think there's a team in this league where he doesn't fill a role for them.
Yeah. Exactly. Like Tampa Bay even could use him. Any team would like to have Ilya Mikheyev on their team. There's a role that he can play on any team.
And I think that's the most valuable thing when you're looking at some of these depth guys. Obviously, in lower levels to get to the NHL, they would have been superstars at a certain point. But to be able to transition to whether it be in college, the AHL, overseas in Europe, where you're a first line, second line guy, and comfortably being able to come into a bottom six role and thrive in it, that's a skill in itself. And not every player can do that. And when you have someone that can do that and do that so well, do something as valuable as penalty killing at such a high level, you don't trade that. You really don't.
Yeah, exactly. We saw Ilya Mikheyev last year before he got his wrist slashed open by a skate. We saw him really get in a groove, and he was scoring goals consistently. Then they had a 411-day time period where he didn't score a goal, but I expect now that the monkey's off his back, he's gonna be more consistent, and there's really no need to even discuss trading Ilya Mikheyev. Let's move on. JB says losing Simmons is a big blow. We've touched on this a long time. The Wayne train being derailed, it really hurts. He's going to be out another 5 or 6 weeks with a broken wrist. Don't rush him back, but when we get him back, boy oh boy, that's going to be a big boost.
And you know what I would actually like to see on a line? I'm not quite sure if this will work out, but I think this would be a really good line. Throw Simmons and VC on the same line. Give them a center and throw them on the same line. And I think that could fix your third line problems right there.
So what? Kerfoot, VC Simmons?
Spezza, VC Simmons, Kerfoot, VC Simmons. You can mix and match the centers. Thornton, VC Simmons. But I think that would be one hell of a line to play against.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, VC's, and those are hardworking guys. Those are hardworking guys. All block shots. I'd like that together. That could be well. That could do well.
Because if you're not moving Kerfoot down, well, not Kerfoot, Hyman, I think that's something you can explore. And I think we touched on the depth of this team earlier. Maybe they weren't quite as deep as we thought. They're obviously still depth. They're still all skating. Every single forward skating in the lineup is an NHL caliber player, at least a bubble NHL caliber player at worst. But when you have those guys back, I think that fixes the depth issues again.
I think it definitely helps. But we've been on here for an hour now. So everybody, can you please smash the like button and hit the notification bell? Ribb's been on here with me for the past hour, but I've been on here for 4 or so hours now. I'm getting really tired. I'm pooped. I will be back here Monday night for post-game show after the Ottawa Senators game. Rib, I don't know if you've got other plans outside of this. Maybe you can join me. We will see. Rib, can you give your closing words for our viewers here at Maple Leafs Media?
I'll keep it short. I'll keep it sweet. Thank you to all our viewers that tune in on a weekly, daily basis. We love having each and every one of you here. It really makes a difference. Obviously, our content would be nothing without all your comments and interaction. And I think the big thing we can take away from tonight is it was one bad period. Let's stay calm. Let's believe in this team, and let's trust that they can get out of this. And everyone, stay safe. Enjoy the hockey season, and wishing you all a happy Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Yep. Uh, I think you said it pretty well there. It was one period of bad hockey, and that came back to bite us. This team will respond Monday against Ottawa Senators. I believe in this team, Rib. I know you do too. We've got a lot of belief in this team. Everyone in the comment section here, night in and night out, you guys, you got a belief in this team as well. You have to have belief in this team to be this invested in them. I really appreciate everybody in the comment section, whether you tuned in for the first time tonight, you've been with us for a couple minutes, or you've been here through the entire show every single night. I appreciate it. Rib appreciates it. So we'll be back here. Everybody stay safe. And I hope you all have a happy Valentine's Day tomorrow night. Till next time, go Leafs go.